Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mental Locker Room. Today, I have an old friend here with me, Dan Russo, who was a soccer player at Notre Dame and has some professional experience, but I will let him tell you about that. So, Dan, if you wanted to give a brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah, well, first, thanks, Jules, for having me on this show. Me and Jules go way back. Haven't talked in a while, but we go way back, so I'm happy to be on here and kind of talk about my journey a little bit. So I pretty much grew up, played for a small town club, the Wall Cosmos. Nobody probably has ever heard of them. And for some reason, somehow I got recruited to Notre Dame. And that's not like ever heard of. People who aren't on academy really going to big schools, especially ACC schools. So for me, that was awesome. I had a bunch of offers from some Division I schools, but littler ones. And it was like, oh, okay, yeah. And then when Notre Dame reached out, I was always going there. And they got me a trial with Red Bull. And then my senior year of high school, I played for Red Bull. And then I went into Notre Dame, did 4 years there. I played for Atlanta United last year. And then this year, I'm currently just trialing around.
So obviously, I know that you've had a pretty tough history with injuries, especially coming out of college. And injuries are a really tough reality for a lot of athletes. Can you share what happened with your injury and how that challenged you?
Yeah, I think my injury is the best thing that's ever happened to me, to be honest. It's one of those things you can look at, and there's two ways you can really go with an injury, and it's I'm giving up, I'm done, I'm going to let go of myself, or I'm going to figure out what needs to be done, and I'm going to figure out how to deal with it, and I'm going to get better from it. And to be honest, when it first happened, it's not like I took that route of I'm going to use this right away to get better. It was pretty much like a big shot in the heart. Happened April of 2024. And I got surgery in May, but I was 3 months into my first ever professional season. I had just gotten drafted to Atlanta from Notre Dame, and I was playing really well, super excited to have a good year, with hopes. I was training with the first team a lot in Atlanta. So I'm on the second team, but I was training with the first team a lot. And just out of nowhere, your life kind of gets turned upside down. You think everything is going really well, and all of a sudden, one step, and I was training with the first team, and it just happened to go. So for me, that was a huge blow. I mean, I was not great. It didn't feel great. I ended up actually walking off the field because I thought, I'm fine. I didn't actually do anything. But the trainers were like, no, dude, you tore your ACL. And I was like, it is what it is. And I obviously was crying, was having a meltdown in the moment, was super, super upset. But honestly, the biggest thing that got me through it was my faith. I hadn't really explored faith before that. I went to Notre Dame, so people would be like, oh, did you find faith at Notre Dame? Where I probably should have. And I said, not at all. I actually didn't use those 4 years to look for God at all in any way, shape, or form. I lived a life that definitely wasn't up to standard with what the Bible tells us how to live in. And just God had put me in Atlanta for some reason, and I look back on it now and just how things fell into place. I'm like, there's no other way than God orchestrating that. Just through my faith, I really used this injury to grow and get better, have a lot of confidence for what's next.
You went through an ACL injury. ACLs are the nightmare scenario. For a baseball player, that's Tommy John. That's ACLs, especially for soccer players, nightmare scenario. It's, you going on this journey and finding your faith.
Yeah.
And first immediately got this injury. Did you have your confidence affected when you were sidelined? Did your mindset change? Did it?
Yeah, I mean, I think your mindset kind of shifts to I'm doing okay to now what the heck do I do? And I think that's a big jump for a lot of people, and they don't really know where to go. And especially for me, I had injuries in college and I didn't deal with them right. I didn't deal with them in the way that I should have. And that's because I had soccer as my identity. I think that was a big thing that I tell people all the time. Like I see kids all the time who are going pro at 15 and 16. And I look at them and I'm just like, I don't think I would have been ready to do that at that age mentally after seeing how I dealt with things in college. And not that I did anything really stupid, but it's just how I coped, I guess. I would go silent. I would let this injury affect my day-to-day life. I wouldn't see, I'd be going to class or hanging out with my friends, and I would just and I'm usually the pretty upbeat guy. I would turn into a sad monster, I guess you could say. And I just I didn't deal with them well. And this injury kind of put me in that spot again of like, okay, well, I don't want to feel like that again. I don't want to do that again. And now I no longer had soccer as my identity. So it wasn't my top priority in my life. And soccer involved a lot of highs, a lot of great highs, and a lot of low lows. And if you ride that wave, it's only so fun for so long. The highs are amazing and the lows are absolutely horrible. And I personally just didn't want to keep doing that up and down, up and down, up and down. And I had started already getting into my faith a little bit. And then that's when I got injured. And it was kind of like I felt God was giving me the option to say, you can use this to lean into me more, or you can use this to lean out. And I couldn't have made a better choice. And want something that will be with me for the rest of my life, for eternity, is my faith.
I think that's amazing, Dan. Seriously. I think a lot of people really don't know how to find an identity outside of their sport. Obviously, your faith has become such a big part of your identity, but did you have trouble before that differentiating your identity between you and a sport?
Yeah, my life was soccer. My life when soccer didn't go well was bad. My life when soccer was good was good. I had a very big trouble differentiating. I used to like games at night. If I had a bad game, I'd let it bleed into my whole next day, maybe my whole week, and I would, and, things, whether it was school would feel a lot worse. I wouldn't want to hang out with my friends as much. I wouldn't. And it's like, why? There's so much more to life. And I love my sport. And that's not saying I'm not going to try in it. But it's like there's so much more than just that soccer game, that practice, that bad touch even. It used to be so bad to a point where if I made a bad touch in practice, I would throw a fit. And it was like, seriously? I look back on it, I'm like, it's kind of embarrassing to be like that. And it's something that I just wouldn't want anyone to experience. And I see so many of these kids that I was in their same spot, so I get it. I see that their identity is soccer because I started when I was 3 years old, and I gave my life to it, wanting to be professional one day. And when you do that, and you work at it every single day, and you give up so much, you sacrifice. I know you know how much you to do certain things, missing parties and doing all this or family vacations or whatever it is, because you have to train or you have games or this or that. It's like you sacrifice so much, and it's so easy for it to become your identity. And then I kind of hit this time in my professional life where last year I was with Atlanta, and all of a sudden I went from in college, hanging out with friends after training, doing all this, schoolwork, blah, blah. You're busy all the time. Like you always have something going on. And then you hit this period after school where I don't think people realize everyone gets there one day where you're done with school. And now you have this weird free time where you're like, who am I? It's like I train during the day and I kind of come back to my apartment sometimes, or, back in Atlanta, I had a girlfriend. So, I had a little bit less free time, but now while I'm here, and this was before even I had my girlfriend, I just was very much so like, what do I do on my free time? Like soccer's over right now. I'm like, who am I? And you ask yourself your questions, like those big questions that seem kind of silly, but it's like the truth. It's like, what do I do? Like, what's my life outside of soccer? What is it? Where can I find joy? I can't just find joy all day in soccer. If I'm training, for 2 hours, 3 hours a day, it's like, what do I do after that? So I kind of use that time to be like, how do I answer that question? And everything around me just kept pointing towards the one source of truth for me. So, and that was the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's crazy, the mentality and everything. But so going through, kind of jumping back to your injury, when that first happened and stuff, did you feel like you had the right support system around you mentally and physically during those times?
Yeah. I had the best support system possible, I think. But that's because I chose to utilize that. And I think a lot of people, and that's something I struggled with in college as well. There was times where I had an injury called osteitis pubis, which is like I was out for like 6 months at one point. And that's where I really learned how to deal with my injury. And that was way before I was faithful. So I really had to figure out how to deal with an injury without faith. And I didn't use my resources, especially Notre Dame has such great resources. They have sports psychs. They have, people, and I think people don't realize how much people really do want to actually help you.
Yep.
Whether it's your teammates or people, you always think, oh, they're going to look at me, they're going to make fun of me or whatever. But it's like, no, whatever you're going through, somebody has already gone through, or they feel sympathy for you and they're going to be willing to help you. That's what a team is, or should be at least.
Agreed.
and have guys that are going to help. So I didn't really utilize my resources nearly as much in college as I should have, especially because college students, they offer them more than anything, I think. But in Atlanta, this was right around as well where I was getting into my very early stage. Was like I wasn't even at the point of believing yet, but I was a curious stage and just trying. And I had a church. They would pray over me. I had my girlfriend, her family, my roommate Javi. I had so many people, and I was surrounded by this faith community, and it genuinely felt like that's all I needed. Like I was so loved. I was so helped. Everything I needed, they could help me with. They could talk through my problems, and every problem I had, they would point to a story or some sort of parable that maybe Jesus gave in the Bible, and I'd be like, wow, that speaks to maybe exactly what I'm going through. Or, I'd read my Bible every morning and I'd see, and for some, I don't know how, but it just happened to be the weird story in Exodus that I'm reading somehow relates to what I'm going through. And I'm like, how is that even possible? So it's just everything was really, really good in Atlanta. I got very, very lucky. And that's just because I decided this time to use my resources and not go into solo mode and hang out by myself and feel bad for myself, which I know a lot of people tend to do. But
I think especially young athletes or people who are just going into college don't really realize how many resources are available to them. And even if they do, sometimes you don't want to use them. I mean, out of pride, out of just thinking that you can do it by yourself. And it's really tough because I think that also puts a lot of athletes in a place where you think that you can crawl out of your injury and rush your recovery, especially because I feel like so many people are afraid of losing their spot, and if I don't get back quick enough, I'm going to lose my spot. Did you ever feel that? And if you did, how did you kind of navigate that pressure?
Yeah, that was definitely something I struggled with a lot, for sure, especially that I tore mine. I tore mine at an interesting stage. It was so early in my season with Atlanta. I had played one and a half games, and then I tore my ACL. And it was so early in the season where it was like I didn't even really get to play. So I knew in my head that there's no way they re-signed me. So I was kind of in that pressure of I'm not going to be able to get re-signed here. They didn't see me for long enough. Maybe they take a chance. I don't know, but I know how this profession works. It's very cutthroat. Yeah. In any professional sport, it's all cutthroat. So I kind of knew what was going to happen. And then I also knew that my 9-month mark was February 9th. And that's kind of what my trainer at Atlanta pushed, is like 9 months. And when you hit that 9-month mark, that's when your chances of re-tear significantly decrease. So my goal was always, let's just hit 9 months. I have to prioritize my knee over finding any spot or getting on any team. So I was in a tough, weird stage of because I just got cleared this February 9th, 2025. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And literally a week after I went out, or I'm still here on trial with Philly right now. And it sucks because a lot of teams wanted me to come in to the beginning of preseason, which was in middle January. But I knew that doing that would be a risk to my own health. And it's after experiencing this injury, I wasn't willing to take my chances and do that again, and you never know, things can happen, but I'm going to try to minimize my chances. So I really struggled with that idea of like, I'm still searching for a team right now. So I'm kind of in the midst of this repercussions of tearing my ACL. And, this season for the MLS Next Pro starts tomorrow. The MLS season started about a couple weeks ago. So I'm kind of in a period right now where, to be honest, all I can do is trust in God. Yeah. And that's what gets me through. That's why I honestly have so much optimism. I know that he's going to make it clear for me, and I'm willing to accept that if he wants me to play soccer, I'll play soccer. If he doesn't, I don't, so I'm at a really good stage and I feel so optimistic. And when I can genuinely, I know I keep coming back to it, but the only one I can attribute it to is really my faith.
Keep coming back to it. I mean, seriously, if that's your journey and that's how you've, found this balance and found your identity, I think that's amazing and it needs to be shared. And honestly, Dan, I'm so proud of you, especially because, we've known each other, how many years now?
Since like high school, not like freshman year, probably.
freshman
maybe.
year of high school. Yeah, so that's almost 9 years. 9 years. And just like seeing you then and seeing you now and grow into the person and obviously the player and your accomplishments is just so amazing. So amazing. It's amazing to watch. And, I'll always be a fan, of course. So kind of going back into your professional career, you said that you played with Atlanta last year, obviously. You got sidelined with your injury, and now you're looking for a new team. Has your mentality shifted going into your next chapter and finding a new team?
Not really, to be honest. I think every single day, I get stronger in my faith. So to be honest, it actually takes a lot of pressure off of me.
That's awesome.
And I play better than ever because I don't want to say I don't care, but soccer, and God gives me the chance to do it every day. And somebody had actually told me this just today, a chaplain I was talking to told me today that like, when you play soccer, like you use it as a time of worship. Like God gave you the chance to play. So now worship him by just enjoying it and doing well at it and enjoying the opportunity he gave you. And I was like, wow, that's actually great. I've never really looked at it like that. That's a great way to look at it. And I had already this pressure off of me, but like when I look at it, like the way he explains it, it makes sense. And so it's like, yeah, I have a lot of pressure taken off, and I play so much better because of it. I no longer have soccer as my identity. So I make a bad pass. It's okay. I'll go win it back. It's all right. Not, I'm going to throw a fit like I probably would have in the past.
This is not the end of the world.
Yes, exactly.
So obviously you've had all of these amazing experiences. If you could talk to younger athletes or give advice to younger athletes struggling with injuries or feeling lost in their identity, what would you say to them?
Oof. I think I would tell them to figure out to figure outside of their sport. And that is the biggest thing I can emphasize. And for me, I love playing golf. And golf has given me so much peace and freedom. And it was like the only competitive thing I could do when I tore my ACL, because it didn't really involve, too much of the knee. Obviously, for the early stages, I couldn't really do anything. But I found what I enjoyed to do outside. I found something, and outside of golf, I found my faith, and that had given me so much optimism. So to these younger athletes, the biggest thing I can give them, and it's so much easier said than done. It took me years and years to figure out how to do it, was to just take my identity out of my sport. And people assume when I say that means that they should stop trying at their sport, or they don't have to work as hard at their sport. Like, that's not what that means. That means that it's not life or death. I'm going to work just as hard as I would have when I thought it was life or death. But now I'm going to take the pressure off of myself. I'm not going to care as much about the little mistakes, little things. But it's just taking your identity out of it. And that was the biggest thing that I wish I had actually listened to. Because there's a difference between hearing it. I'd heard it probably, but I never actually listened to it. So once I've listened to that, life has felt a lot better, not just soccer.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It's tough, especially when you play a sport for, 20 plus years now.
Yeah.
And I would say that's most Division I or collegiate athletes at this point, people growing up playing the sport.
Yep.
So I also wish I had listened when people said, find hobbies, do something else, that doesn't mean stop trying. Of course, hold yourself to that standard, work as hard as you can, but there's so much more to life than a game.
100%. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on. I seriously appreciate it. And I thought everything you had to say was absolutely amazing. I really hope it reaches the right person or, people. And best of luck with your future endeavors.
Thanks, Jules. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. It was really nice to catch up, but let me know when you get an A on this project.
Will do. Well, thank you, everybody. That was another episode of the Mental Locker Room. So tune back in next time.